Good morning.
Good morning.
Blessing of the Lord be upon you.
We bless you in the name of the Lord.
Minor Prophets, lesson number 63. And moving right along, we are studying in the Book of Habakkuk. And today, let's see. Exposition of the text. We looked at the introductory material last week. Now we're going to get right into it. Only 3 chapters, so we'll be in it for 2-3 weeks. Out of it, get on the dam, 1 chapter in it, then we'll get into some of the post-exile prophets, and those are going to be nice, challenging, and edifying books for us. So, Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 1 through chapter 2, verse 20. 2 chapters, but all talking about the same thing. And it's the burden of the Lord's watchman. The burden of the Lord's watchman. So, Habakkuk 1:1, the oracle that Habakkuk the prophet saw. So what's an oracle? Well, you can look up the definition of the word, the etymology of the word. You find that it's, and some translations will say the burden. Burden. We know what a burden is. If you got a horse or a mule, you pack it up, load it up, and you put a burden on it. Well, that's the way that the prophets felt. That when the Lord was using them to bring a message, He was putting a burden on them. And this burden, of course, is called an oracle. And if you just look at that word, oracle, you can kind of get the concept that it's something that's to be spoken. It's a message that needs to go out. And another variation of it is something that the idea of being carried. Right? And then a vision. He actually talks about vision. The oracle, the message or burden that Habakkuk saw. So that means it's a vision. He's seeing this. It's something that's coming before him. Is it a dream, or is it just he's there and all of a sudden he gets into a meditative state and he sees this vision that now becomes the burden, the oracle that he's to present to the people of Judah as to what is going to happen in their nation very shortly, within a generation. So, reminds us of 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 21, where Peter talks about how the prophets of old were carried along by the Holy Spirit. And it's the concept of they were moved along, that it's kind of like just picking up and carrying, and that's that carried part of this, the burden. They're the ones who are being carried along by the Holy Spirit to bring this oracle, this message to the people, but the way they receive it, the way Habakkuk receives it, is in a vision. So as we go down through this, it's going to help us to remember that the first 2 chapters here are a vision. He's seeing this, and even though it sounds like he's doing it in this dialogue, and I mentioned that in last week's lesson, he's seeing himself in this dialogue. He's seeing himself complaining to the Lord. Don't you understand what we're going through? Don't you see this? Can you imagine? Did you ever see yourself in a dream? But actually see yourself. I mean, to me, it's like I see and I'm here in the dream, but I don't see myself over there in the dream. He's seeing himself in this vision doing these things. So, to me, that's a little strange. Now, the name Habakkuk means to embrace or hug. And you can tell in there's kind of a double hit, a repetition. And the primary purpose of this book is to give a comfort or encouragement to the righteous people of Judah and Jerusalem in spite of calamity, that the Lord's justice against the evil of the nation that's coming. All right? He's going to comfort the righteous, not the unrighteous, not the ones who deserve the punishment, but it's like he's going to give them a hug. That's the way some of the scholars would present this. Habakkuk. Now, when we did the survey of the Bible, 3-4 years ago, it's been a long time. Remember what the picture for Habakkuk was? He was on a watchtower, right? And that's going to come into play later. Yeah, he's a watchman, right? And he says, I'm going to take my place as the watchman, and I'm going to watch and I'm going to wait. So we have that aspect here. The prophets were the watchmen. So that's why we title this, The Burden of the Lord's Watchman. He's taking his place. But he's watching because he knows what's going to happen. He can tell the people, here's what the Lord is doing in our time. It's going to come. Remember we talked about Hezekiah? Isaiah prophesied this to Hezekiah, but Hezekiah says, well, that's the way it's got to be. At least it's not going to happen in my time. Wow, that gives him comfort. I can't explain that. But no, this is going to happen in your time, Habakkuk. It's going to happen in this generation. All right, so Habakkuk chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. It's called Habakkuk's complaint in my English Standard Version. What I have on the olive tree. And I guess it is a complaint. He's complaining to the Lord. And remember, he's doing this in a vision. It's a vision. He's seeing that he's in this vision, and he's questioning the Lord. All right? Verses 2 through 4. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear? Now he's making an assumption the Lord isn't listening. The Lord isn't hearing, or what? The Lord doesn't care. Remember we talked about the deists at the time of the founding of our nation? They believed that the Lord wound up the universe like a clock and just walked away. And comes back every now and then to kind of wind the clock up again, maybe change a few things, but and maybe that's what he's thinking here, but it's like, you're not doing anything about this evil that we live in. Manasseh was evil. Ammon was evil. Josiah, and I believe it was before the reforms of Josiah, Josiah isn't doing much in way of making us a good nation either. Lord, why aren't you doing something about it? Okay? Or cry to you violence, and you will not save. Verse 3, why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. So the law is paralyzed, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, so justice goes forth perverted. And it's like Habakkuk is saying, Lord, if I can see this, why can't you see it? And you're the Lord of heaven and earth. You're the one who's supposed to be in charge of justice. You're the one who's, according to the law and the prophets that have already been there, talking, you're the one that's supposed to make sure everything goes right. Well, aren't you paying attention? So you can see how this is a complaint. And, is he kind of mystified? Hey, am I talking like this to the Lord? But that's his complaint. The righteous cry out for relief, surrounded and attacked by evil leaders. Violence and destruction are a way of life. The people have just come to say, well, that's just the way it is, and that's the way it's going to be. Maybe that's how we should be. The righteous are saying, what good does it do us to be righteous? The law courts are paralyzed by bribes and injustice. That's what was going on in Judah and Jerusalem. Reminds us of what was going on in the northern kingdom, right? For those things, it was destroyed. Not Judah, not Jerusalem. That's where the temple is. We're the Lord's people. Yeah, we might do some bad things, but we're the Lord's people. The Lord's not going to destroy us. Well, so that's Habakkuk's complaint. So starting with verse 5, you have the Lord's answer. Look among the nations and see and wonder and be astounded. All right? So when he says, look among the nations, the Lord is saying, stop thinking about Judah outside of the context of the geopolitical things going on around them. Right? Think about Assyria. Think about Babylon. Think about Egypt. Think about Moab and Edom and the Philistines and all of them. Take note of what's going on in the world. Even today, we should take note of what's going on in the world. Because the Lord is. The Lord is. And what nation is the Lord raising up maybe to punish our nation for the evil that's being done in our nation? So, we've got to be aware of things. So he says, look at the nations and see and wonder and be astounded. Well, what does that mean, not be astounded? What you think, you see, may not be what's going to happen. You may think that Assyria is you may think Assyria is your great enemy, and you may think that because you are allied with Babylon, that everything's going to be all right. Because that's what they had done. Au contraire, right? Be astounded, because you made a friend with Babylon, who's the enemy of Assyria. Yeah, Josiah is going to go up and try to stop Egypt from helping Assyria. He's going to fail. He's going to die. His son, Jehoahaz, is going to become king. Egypt is going to go help Assyria, but they're going to fail. Assyria is going to be destroyed, but Babylon's going to come and get you. Just because you were friends doesn't mean you're not going to be destroyed by them. What? We helped you. We've been paying you tribute. How can you do that to us? Fools. Fools. Didn't you think they would take you over? Okay. I'm doing a work in your days that you would not believe if told. For behold, I'm raising up the Chaldeans. We talked about that last week. That bitter and hasty nation. You thought Assyria was bad? Wait till you get a taste of the Chaldeans, who march through the breadth of the earth to seize dwellings not their own. They are dreaded and fearsome. Their justice and dignity go forth from themselves. Their justice goes forth from themselves. In other words, they make their own rules. They make their own rules. So, what are the legitimate reasons for capital punishment for the Babylonians? Whatever they decide. Whatever they decide. Verse 8, their horses are swifter than leopards, more fierce than evening wolves. Their horsemen press proudly on, they fly like an eagle swift to devour. They're just, boom, they're here and they attack and they're sweep through. You can't stop them. Verse 9, they all come for violence. In other words, they're not coming to make a peace treaty with you. That's not what they're about. They come for violence, to destroy. All their faces forward, they gather captives like sand. At kings they scoff, and at rulers they laugh. Yeah, at big ones like Assyria and Egypt. What are they going to do to Jehoahaz? They laugh at every fortress where they pile up earth and take it. That's where they do the siege works. Box a city in. Nobody can get in, nobody can get out. Well, they can get in if they wanted to. They don't really want to. They just want everybody in the city to basically die. Then they sweep by like the wind and go on. Guilty men whose own might is their God. Guilty. They're guilty. They don't play by the rules. They don't. How should we put this? Morally, they are corrupt. They lie, they cheat, they steal, they murder, they commit adultery. Everything that's against what the Lord would have people to do. They don't do. Because their God is their own might. I'm strong, I can do it. That's kind of Nietzsche, the philosopher, Nietzsche and the Nazis and the Soviets on steroids. Okay. That's where they are. We can do what we want to do because we are our own gods. Power, power, power. All right, so what's he saying there, verses 7 through 11? That basically, character of the Chaldeans and Babylonians, it's there, whose own might is their God. That's what they worship, is power. Strength and power. Okay. so, that brings us to my heading here in the ESV says Habakkuk's second complaint.
Which says the prophet's second question.
Okay, and I change it to Habakkuk's plea for mercy. Lord, if this is what it's going to be, wait a minute. Let's reconsider this. All right, verses 12 and 13. But this goes clear down to chapter 2 and verse 1. All right. 12 and 13. Are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. And that's a statement in the English Standard Version, but I think maybe that ought to be a question. Like he's asking, surely we're not going to die. You're not going to destroy us, are you? You see what I'm saying? So we'll get back to that in a moment. O Lord, you have ordained them as a judgment, and you, O rock, have established them for reproof. You who are of purer eyes than to see evil, and cannot look at wrong, why do you idly look at traitors, and remain silent when the wicked swallow up the man more righteous than he? So, yeah, here's like, wait a minute, Lord, you are a good God, a great God, a righteous God. Basically, how can you allow an evil nation to punish a more righteous nation? Again, Habakkuk is making an assumption here that Judah is more righteous than the Chaldeans, Babylon, which, yes, to a degree, there are probably some righteous people in Judah, but when Judah, for the most part, is acting like Babylon, they're not righteous. So, his plea, surely we shall not be destroyed. You're just going to chasten us. You're just going to punish us a little bit, kind of like you did before with Hezekiah. You're going to punish us, but then everything's going to be all right. You're not going to destroy Jerusalem. You're not going to destroy the temple. And there'll be a king, maybe even this Josiah. And boy, he's going to turn things around. All these other nations, they can fight and destroy themselves, but then we're going to be here, and we're going to be that shining city on a hill. We shall not die. You're not going to destroy us, right, Lord? We're your people. Now, is this kind of reminiscent of Abraham? Back when the Lord and two angels come to him, they appear as men. And he kind of asks them, what are you doing? We're going down to Sodom and Gomorrah. We're going to check out to see if what we've heard about Sodom and Gomorrah is correct. And if it is, we're going to destroy those cities. There was actually 5 cities there, right? And what does Abraham do? Well, if there's 50 righteous people there, would you destroy the city? No, not if there's 50 righteous. And he bargains him down to what? 10? Is it 10? If there's 10 righteous people, the Lord says, if there's 10 righteous, I won't destroy them. And then he sends the 2 angels off, right? There's not 10 righteous there. He destroys the city, but he saves the righteous. How many righteous? Really one. Really one. Okay? But what's the Lord going to do here? He's going to do the same thing. Now, maybe not physically. Physical, yes, in one sense, but spiritually, that's the key. the righteous will be saved, even if they die in the destruction. The righteous will be saved because they will be ready to go on to the next level of existence for eternity. Does that make sense? That's where we're headed to in this. That's where we get to the Lord's second answer. Okay? So in 14 through 17, Habakkuk tries to make a defense for Judah. Okay? So he's trying to make a defense for Judah. If you were making a defense for them, if you were making a defense for the United States of America today, what would your defense be? I can't help what they're doing in Washington, D.C. We got evil leaders that are doing evil things. Lord, don't blame me. I'm trying to do the best I can to be righteous. Would that make sense? Don't destroy me because of what they're doing. Okay? Listen. See if that's not kind of what is going on here. Verses 14 through 17. So Habakkuk says to the Lord, you make mankind like the fish of the sea. Okay, in prophetic, poetic terminology, the sea is like the mass of human beings. All right? And they're just tossed about on the sea. They're just out there. It's just, you know how the sea is. It's waves and tides and there's storms on it and everything. Okay, it's a mass of humanity. You make mankind like the fish of the sea, like crawling things that have no ruler. Well, did they have rulers? Yes, they had kings, because that's what they wanted, right? Right? And they quit having the anointed kings, and they started just appointing kings. Verse 15. He brings all of them up with a hook. Who brings all of them up with a hook? He doesn't tell us, does he? He doesn't say who the he is here.
Cal. Should the Chaldean to bring them, all of them up with a hook. Make it fold. Put it in italics.
Yeah, it's in italics. Somebody has added that. And yeah, the judge is who I would suppose is going to be here. So here's this judge. He's going to judge Judah, but he's judging Judah for the Lord. Well, it's the ruler of Chaldea, or the Babylonians, who's coming to perform this judgment. So he brings all of them up with a hook. He drags them out with his net. He gathers them in his dragnet. So he rejoices and is glad.
Mine says they.
Or they. Okay. Therefore, verse 16, he sacrifices to his net and makes offerings to his dragnet. Sacrifices and offerings, what kind of, under what category do we place that? If somebody's offering sacrifices and offerings, what do we call it?
Worship.
That's worship. But he's worshiping his net. He's worshiping his dragnet. It's idol worship. And what is his net? What is his dragnet? It's what he captures these nations, these peoples with. Well, that goes back to his power. Right? His power. He's not catching them with the philosophy. He's not catching them with his religion, but he offers sacrifices to his net, to his power. Well, what is his power? His power is his idol god that he worships. So he thinks. But who has raised him up? No. Go back to the first part. The Lord's answer in the first part. What the Lord say? I am raising up the Chaldeans. Because they're going to judge. Not so much judge, but carry out the judgment on Judah. Okay? So he makes offerings to his dragnet, for by them he lives in luxury, and his food is rich. Yeah, because he's stealing it from all these nations. Verse 17, is he then to keep on emptying his net? And mercilessly killing nations forever? That's a big question there, isn't it?
This says without sparing. That's the same thing.
Yeah, like without thinking.
Without sparing, yeah. But notice that it's a question. And this is an answer, right? Did I jump back? No, I'm where I need to be. Get over here. So, yeah, this is a question. So here's the Babylonians are going to come down, they're going to destroy Judah, going to destroy Jerusalem, going to punish them, right? Habakkuk asks, is the Chaldeans, the king of the Chaldeans, is he then to keep on emptying his net? Is he going to take over the whole world and mercilessly killing nations forever? That's the question that Habakkuk has. Is that how it's going to end? I thought that the Lord was going to come back and rule over the world from Jerusalem. You catch that? Is this what's going to happen? This evil guy is going to set up a kingdom and it's going to rule over the world for the rest of time? Am I getting through? Am I making sense? That's Habakkuk's complaint. Now, chapter 2 and verse 1. Let me see if I got... Okay. Before I go there, just one thing. We go back to that, how the people are like the fish of the sea, and they have no ruler. That's kind of likened to sheep of a flock without a shepherd. My people are like sheep without a shepherd. Isn't that what Jesus said? He looked out and he had compassion. My sheep are like sheep because they have no shepherd. Well, King Herod wasn't very good. His son wasn't very good. The rest of the children who became kings weren't good. The Roman emperor wasn't very good. They were like sheep without a shepherd. They needed a shepherd. Well, they had kings, but those kings weren't very good. So, comes down. Is this where it's going to end? Is this where Israel is ended? Is this where Judah is going to end? Is this going to be the end of it? And the world is just going to be ruled by these evil, pagan, idol worshipers forever? And then he makes this statement, and this really should be at the end of chapter 1. I don't know why they split it and put it in chapter 2. I will take my stand at my watch post and station myself on the tower and look out to see what he will say to me, what the Lord will say to me, and what I will answer concerning my complaint. He's given his best argument against the destruction of Judah. It's not the righteous people's fault. There are people here who are trying, but the leaders are so evil that we can't do very much. You're going to destroy us along with them, and this evil nation rule the world? Lord, is that how it's going to end up? I'm going to go over here. Yeah, I'm a watchman. I'm going to go over here to my watch post, my watch tower, and I'm going to station myself, and I'm just going to look and see, and I'm going to wait until you give me an answer, God, or Lord. And then once you give me an answer, then I will answer concerning my complaint. Then I'll answer you. So, what are we going to have? All right. I don't have any more up here yet. But the rest of chapter 2 is the Lord's answer. Here's what's going to happen with Judah. All right, down to, and so I'm rousing the Chaldeans. How can you, what's going to happen with the righteous? So we pick up in chapter 4, or chapter 2, especially verse 4. And what's going to happen with the Chaldeans? He's going to explain. The Lord's going to explain to him. Here's what's going to happen with the evil ones in Judah, the righteous ones in Judah. Here's what's going to happen to the Chaldeans. The judge of heaven and earth has spoken. Habakkuk 2:20. What's that? The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth what? Be silent before him. Okay. So now, what's going to be Habakkuk's answer? He's on his watchtower. He's waiting. He's got his answer. Now, what does he do? Chapter 3 is a prayer and a song of praise. The Lord knows what he's doing. The Lord's got it under control. That's where we're headed. That's where we're going to stop. Do you have any questions or comments? It's an easy book. It's just,
I never thought about it like this until today, but he has a vision. Divinely inspired, he records it. And I guess presents it to the people in real time. Is that correct? You know, this is written for our inspiration, but as a dream, he had to record it the next morning, and then I wonder how the people how the prophets presented this stuff to the people. It wasn't like you could put it in the newspaper. Word of mouth only. The four masses were not told, you know, and any answer that we give is speculation.
I could only
But
imagine.
it's almost like this is written for us and not the people in real time. See what I mean?
Yeah, but I think it was written for them.
Well, I don't doubt that, but
It was written for them, but this is a message then that he's going to take. And he's going to go down to the temple, and he's going to go out on the street corners, and he may even make a trip through Judah,
just like the missionary
preaching
church
this
did.
and teaching this, and ending it up with this prayer and this song of praise to God, telling these people, here's what's going to happen, but it's going to be all right. If you are righteous, it's going to be all right. Whether you live and are carried into exile into Babylon, or whether you die here on the streets of Jerusalem, if you are righteous, it's going to be all right for you. The Lord's going to take care of you. Here's a big hug.
And think about, these are kind of rhetorical questions that I'm asking, but things didn't happen fast. They didn't have planes and trains and automobiles. And this had to happen as a prelude to the events that he discusses. Why weren't they ready to fight? You know, it seemed like it would turn their, it would tell them to prepare now. You're going to be defeated, but prepare now.
Right. They needed to prepare spiritually because physically they couldn't prepare enough to stop this.
Right.
The only thing the Lord could help them, but he says, I'm not going to. And what you're saying is why I believe this was written about 625 BC, before Josiah's reform started about 622, 621 BC. There's still evil going on in Judah and Jerusalem as Josiah is king, but it may be that a copy of Habakkuk's prophecy gets into Josiah's hands, and he's saying, wow, I need to do something. And then he starts carrying out his reforms. He does things at the temple to get the idolatry out of the temple, to remodel the temple, to take down the high places where people were worshiping the stars and the moon and the sun and everything. He carries on a whole bunch of reforms. He gets rid of the idolatrous priests. He does so much. But again, those are things that are spiritually enhancing, creating more righteous people.
And it's all done to no avail, knowing that it's to no avail.
Right, because of the earlier prophecy that, hey, Judah's gone because of what Manasseh did. And then 609, Josiah gets killed in battle. He tried. But who's he helping? Who's he helping when he goes up there to Armageddon to stop the Egyptians? He's helping the Babylonians. And they're the ones coming to destroy. Isn't that astounding?
You know, we look back at the history of it. And as I said, all of this is done knowing that there's no benefit is not the proper word.
There's no physical
Knowing that it's
growth.
not gonna change from what's written, it's not gonna change anything, even though you go do these things and try to get better and all that. The Lord said, hey, you know, this is the end. Are those things done? Those things that he changes, is there righteousness in that? Self-perpetuation? Again, rhetorical, just trying to think through it, knowing that I'm defeated, I'm going to go ahead and do what's right.
I think it was if you look at the accounts of Josiah, when he does this, one of the big things is they actually find a copy of the law in the temple, and he begins to read the law and study the law of Moses, and he finds out they haven't kept the Passover since the time of Moses. He orders them, hey, we're going to keep the Passover this year. How many people did that bring back to the Lord and following the Lord? Yeah, I think they had what we would call a revival. But it started with him. And then reforming the temple, doing away with idolatry. I think it was a true revival, but it was a revival for pure righteousness of the people. And that's what the Lord's intention of it was. Were there people who were just doing it out of ritual? Undoubtedly. Did it do them any good? No. But the peoples whose hearts were turned to the Lord because of it, yes. Because whether they died or whether they're taken in exile, the righteous were going to be saved.
Well, that makes me think, you know, I'm trying to put myself in the place of this time. And what you just said makes me think, as those people turn to righteousness, it probably prepared coming generations to rise up righteously after all of this calamity that is inevitable. Right?
Think how it might have inspired Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who get taken to Babylon in the first wave in 606 BC. I don't know how, you know, they're teenagers. They're teenagers, but they probably knew Josiah and knew of those reforms enough that when Jehoahaz comes in, and 6 months later he's taken out by Necho, Pharaoh Necho, and then Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, that's Zedekiah's a little bit later. But then these evil ones start up again. You got people like Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they're like, we're going back to that stuff? And they're taken to Babylon, to the capital, and look how they make a stand. And could that have happened without Josiah's reforms? Maybe, but I think them remembering Josiah and what he had done, and actually being born and getting that early education in that time of reform or revival, kind of sparked their lives as they went into exile. And you got Ezekiel later on going to the River Kibar in the northern part of that.
There's a lot to try to wrap your head around in their time. You know, we study this for ourselves, and I think we fail to give proper due to the real-time effects that it had or didn't have, whatever be the case, to those people. Because, you know, it's pretty depressing stuff. And if you're standing there and he's telling you this on the street corner, you think, well, what's the use? Difficult.
Yeah. But then it comes back to that point, individual righteousness.
And it's hard to grasp the reality of, hey, God's talking to me. I mean, really talking to me. We don't enjoy that. Well, most of the time, when God spoke, it wasn't exactly a joyous message.
Right. There was usually a sign to accompany. There's usually something there that would show that the prophet was a true prophet. That what he was saying would come true. So, you know, it just wasn't that it was thrown in there, you know, out of context. He was probably prophesying something before, and then this comes to him. And there were others. Huldah, the prophetess, was prophesying at that time. She's mentioned in 2 Kings or 2 Chronicles. You can go back and you can read portions of that. You know, they had prophets. We're dealing with the writing prophets here, and what they have left for us.
I can't help but believe that, as we're told in the New Testament, Christ did many other things, but there's not room if the sky will parchment, the sea or ink to record them. We're just given a glimpse, and I can't help but believe that throughout the Old Testament time, all we're given are the highlights.
We're given what we need to know.
Just like the law was preparation for the Israelites to receive the Christ. And then when he got here, they didn't get it right. This is all given to us to prepare for eternity. I hope we're doing a better job than we study about. And you think about it, that's the lesson of the Bible. Look at all these failures. You need to do better than that. Can you see that? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bible is a very truthful, honest book. We'll take all the visitors
This was very
we can.
good
And
today.
remember, count the legs and divide by 2. That way you get double visitors. We need to quit for now, but thank you for your time and attention. Class is dismissed.